Just a heads up for anyone concerned, I am going to mention the Stanford rape case and the general subject of sexual abuse and assault in this video, but I am mostly talking about the position in witchcraft of such practices as hexing, cursing, binding, and banishing as they relate to some issues that have been going on recently. So I just want to give anyone a heads up in case you're concerned about hearing more about that, but I don't go into any detail and it's much more discussion, so I just wanted you to be prepared. Have you noticed that lately everything is a total mess? Well, that's partly why I spent the last hour or so waiting for a video to render and cleaning my apartment instead of making a video. Because it's Saturday already, today's the day I wanted to post videos, but this might not go up until tomorrow, and I'm struggling to decide whether I want to do a video or not, because I was going to post something entirely different, which is what I was working on, but those can wait, they're not time sensitive. Whereas there is all this stuff happening right now that I feel like perhaps I should address, and you know how much I don't like to should on myself, and we shouldn't make ourselves do things because of what we should do, whatever. But at the same time, I don't want to talk about things, and life's hard. My name's Cara, this is my personal channel. If you're new here, I make videos about stuff, and there are links below to places you can follow me. Also, I'm CuteWitch772 everywhere, pretty much, so yeah. I've been trying to make a video every weekend, and this weekend there's just a lot of stuff going on that I'd rather not bring up to the world. I'd rather not give it more energy. When you're a practitioner of magic, you think about these things, right? You don't want to add more energy to things that you don't like happening in the world. But at the same time, I think that things need to be talked about sometimes. So the biggest problem that was kind of in my realm of the pagan community a couple weeks ago, and like the past week or so, was this transphobia thing that happens. Someone had asked me about red tent and whether it is inclusive of trans women, and my answer was basically ask the individual group that you're planning on getting involved with, because everyone might be different, and that holds. But then this other news came to light about some issues in the pagan community, the extended pagan community, like the global, or at least national, I'm in the States, community, about this transphobia that is being put out there by a lot of people who refer to themselves as radical feminists and basically are concerned only with women-born, cis females, basically. And so that's the biggest thing that I was kind of grappling with last week, was this transphobia thing, and who is inclusive and who is not, and bleh, all that junk. Then, this week, we hear about this hexing that a lot of witches decided to do to the rapist from the Stanford sexual assault rape case. I'm not going to go into detail about that, so I don't want to get really into that, but I have been following it. If you haven't been, there's tons of articles online that you can read, and now there's more information coming out that just makes it even more disgusting and horrible. But what I actually want to touch on is this hexing thing, and really I don't want to get into detail about it either, but I've seen some articles about it written by people who participated in it, written by people who didn't participate in it. I've seen things that show the text of the suggested spell that some of them used. They did not all do that exact spell. Some people tweaked their intention and made it just for the dismantling of rape culture, something that I can really get behind. However, the suggested text that was written for the people who directly hexed the rapist in question, just the wording and what exactly they wished upon this person as a punishment bothers me for a lot of reasons. And so instead of just giving my views, I want to bring up a conversation and ask you guys, what do you think about directly cursing people to the extent of wishing pain and suffering upon them? And what do you think about whether we are allowed to choose punishments for situations like this? Now, it might be different, I think, if it was something personal, something that happened to us, something that happened to me, something that happened to my family or my friends, I might feel a whole lot differently about what it is my right to say in that situation versus what someone else would have a right to say about my personal situation. So I am not the victim in this specific case. I have dealt with issues like this before. I am dealing with issues similar to this. There are times where things like this are appropriate. In my opinion, the way that this particular one is being written about and is being talked about, and the wording that was used by some people, not everyone did it, is just bothersome to me. And, you know, for me, it's about justice and seeking justice and wanting this person to realize what they've done and take responsibility for their actions and realize that what they've done is wrong. And if you read the statement by the victim, that's mostly what she wants, because this person still, like, is not recognizing that what he has done is actually wrong, and he's blaming the wrong things for it. It's a huge mess, but it brings up a lot of questions because witches got involved and that got picked up by the media. It brings up this question. And to me, also, the weirdest thing was the fact that the day after it happened, all these people who did it are blogging about it, saying what they did and how they're proud of it, and phooey on people who don't do things like this. Which is a whole side discussion, right? Like, whenever we talk about the Read, I feel like I'm a broken record about certain things about the Read, like reminding people, the Read just tells us that if we want to do something and it's not going to harm someone, the Read tells us, go ahead, do what you will, if it harms none. It does not tell us what to do if our intent will harm. There are sirens happening outside my door. This happens all day long here because I don't live very far from the town center where the fire department and the police department are, so that happens a lot, sorry. Now I don't remember exactly what I was saying. Oh, about the Read. It doesn't tell us what to do if our actions harm. That is still up to us. It is always up to us. And some people have been bringing up the cliche, if you can't hex, then you can't heal. I think people confuse ability with willingness. Like, just because someone chooses not to do something does not in itself mean that they are incapable of doing it. It just means that there might be different situations where we might think that it's appropriate, or, you know, we just have different standards for when that's appropriate. Some people will curse, hex, bind, banish, whatever, willy-nilly. Maybe not willy-nilly, but in any situation that could possibly warrant it, they are for it. It's like, no question. Whereas other people, like me, it takes until a really high amount of necessity to get to that point. There are some things that I perhaps should have acted on in that way already, and I have not yet, because I'm one of the people who waits longer. But I live by the Read, I follow the Read's advice, and yet I know there are a lot of instances where these things are the best and highest good, for my best and highest good, and I think that people forget that when they talk about the Read. But the thing that was weirdest for me is that people were talking about it the day after, and I'm like, what happened to keeping silence and not talking about it? Like, when I have done things like this, really when I do anything, when I do any kind of spell, I don't tell you guys about it. So that was one of the weirdest things for me, was just like, why are they talking about it the day after it happened? Like, it hasn't had any time, and now they're putting it out there where people can argue about it, and people are now arguing about whether or not it was okay and whether or not they would have done it, adding all this other energy to it. Like, that's just, to me, that's just poor practice. Like, I don't know how this worked. So what are your opinions on public group stuff like this? Because I've participated in a global call for healing after the Paris and Beirut attacks. When all of that kind of stuff was happening, a reclaiming group put together this thing and said, hey, everybody get together at this time, read this prayer, do whatever ritual you want, but let's read this prayer together. And it was really nice. That didn't get picked up by the media. And things like this, like mass hexings, as my friend Chesney put it, have been done before in the wake of other rape and murder cases, as one of the articles that I read mentioned. Like, this has happened before. And they are high-profile cases. So, like, how is it that it happened this time, that it's being picked up by the media, so many other people heard of it? I posted that thing about the Paris and Beirut healing one on all my social media, and I guarantee you a lot of you still didn't hear of it. But this one is everywhere. So, yeah, so there's a lot of stuff packed up in this. There's a lot of stuff to think about. There's, you know, like, I would be the kind of person to pray for justice and for this person to get what he deserves by his actions, the true consequences kind of thing. But who am I to actually write it out in a list and label what I think those punishments are? I don't know as much or as well as the universe. There could be things about this person that are even worse than we know, you know? And I mean, I want justice to be served, and I want this person to understand what he's done. And I read an article by Yvonne Aburrow today that I am going to link in the description. Please read that. I thought her views on the situation were fantastic, and the way she described it is great. So please read Yvonne's article. And yeah, just tell me what you think about, don't even talk about the specific case. Let's just talk about maybe instances wherein you think that bindings and banishings and things like that, what part do they play in your practice? To what extent do you feel that we as witches are justified to dole out punishment, or to what extent should we leave that to the gods or the universe? Cody and I were talking about this in our Pagan Perspective group. He was talking about to what extent does social justice work and causes that we take part in as witches, to what extent is that brought into our path work? And as someone who is part of the reclaiming tradition and also a Unitarian Universalist, those are two traditions that are very social justice oriented. And the thing that kind of made me hesitant about reclaiming is that they really put an emphasis on the political involvement. And to me that was like, ooh, I'm not political. But I am. It's just that word that scares me, because it's like, it's not something I want to argue about, you know? But it's very important. So I do think that witchcraft can go hand in hand with social justice work. And, you know, there's a term now being used as an insult for people who are really concerned with social justice efforts. And if you don't know it, I'm not going to say it. If you do, you know what I'm talking about. And I think it's just silly that things like that are used as an insult. Like, sorry, we care about stuff. It's very weird. Yeah, and what do you think about posting and blogging and publicly sharing things that you've worked on, especially where people who disagree with you would have a chance to find out what you've done and maybe add their thoughts about it that might be opposing what you've done? Just how do you feel about how all of that kind of works into your own practice? And I'm sure there are other things that I wanted to say that I could say, but without getting into anything really super personal on my end, yes, these are things that have personally been involved in my life, and yes, I have made similar decisions, and yes, I dealt with the consequences, and they are far enough in the past now that if I wanted to, I could tell you about them, because it's done, it's over, the spell took its effect, consequences were handed out and dealt with, and the result has manifested, so nobody else's opinion can change that now, because it's over. But had I told you about it right away, what would have happened? I also forgot to mention when I originally filmed this that something I specifically enjoyed about Yvonne's article is that she talks about consent culture and what are we doing to dismantle rape culture and to replace it with consent culture. So something that I am doing, trying to do in my daily life, is I'm getting a lot better at asking permission to hug people, and so asking someone, may I give you a hug? Even if I've hugged them before, I try to ask them every time, and especially when dealing with children. If it's a friend of mine whose child I am going to see, and again, even if I've met them before and they've hugged me then, if they don't want to give me a hug then, at that moment, or if they don't want to give me a high five or whatever, I let that be, and I don't allow their parents to force them to try to hug me or whatever, and I say, no, it's their decision. And usually, later on, they warm back up to me, and they will be willing to do that, but that's my big thing. One small step that I am definitely making is trying to be better about asking permission for hugs and things like that. There are lots of other ways that we can incorporate that, but that's the biggest example that I can think of, because that's something that I definitely try to work on. So what are some ways that maybe you are building consent culture, and what ways are we all building consent culture together? I also recorded a video quite a while ago about safe spaces that will be something that I will be posting in the future. That has been edited and ready to go for a while, and now it seems like the right time to post it soon. But everything's getting so out of order. But anyway, so sometime in the future I will also be talking about safe spaces or brave spaces, which is a term that Cody taught me. So, yeah. There's just a lot. Ooh, there's a lot going on, and I kind of am like, I am still upset about the transphobia thing, obviously, but this other thing has also, like, kind of just cut in front of it, like, took its place in line, like, worry about me now. That's not fair. It's all crazy stuff that we have to think about and deal with. And yeah, so I'll stop rambling. Give me your thoughts. How does all of this play into your path work and your ideas of kind of stuff that you do? And my partner is coming over to take me to dinner, so I should probably wrap this up, and I will see y'all later. And next week I will probably post 2 videos that I've been working on for some other things. And yes, please check out the links in the description. And I'll see you next time. I wish all of the good things for you, all of the peaceful things, all of the things that need to happen for you. Who am I to say that that's happiness? Whatever it is that you need most right now, I wish for that for you. And don't forget to be awesome. Blessed be, and goodbye.